The guard's armor hissed as plasma fire scorched the air 3 inches from his helmet. Captain Marcus Chen didn't flinch. He'd stopped flinching 6 years ago on the burning fields of Tau Ceti, and he wouldn't start now. Not here. Not in the Imperial throne room with every weapon in the galaxy pointed at his chest. The Valkyrie Empress sat motionless on her crystalline throne, her 4 eyes tracking the rebel commander who'd just fired the warning shot. Her scales shimmered violet in the chamber's bioluminescent light, each one a perfect hexagon of living metal. She hadn't moved. She wouldn't move. That was the problem. "Your Radiance," the rebel commander hissed, his translator crackling. "Order your pet human to stand down, or the next shot removes his head." 300 armed insurgents filled the vast hall, their weapons trained on the lone figure standing between them and the Empress. Marcus adjusted his stance by half an inch, his hands steady on the ceremonial plasma blade at his side. Ceremonial. The rebels didn't know it could cut through 6 inches of reinforced steel. They didn't know a lot of things about humans. The Empress's primary eyes narrowed. When she spoke, her voice resonated through the chamber like struck crystal. "Captain Chen serves at his own discretion. I give no orders regarding his position." The rebel commander's neck ridges flared red anger, Marcus had learned. 3 years of standing post had taught him to read Valkyrie emotions better than most of their own kind could. Then he dies defending a tyrant. How fitting. The commander raised his weapon. Marcus saw the energy cells glow intensify. 0.73 seconds until discharge. Plenty of time. He moved. Not backward towards safety, forward, into the kill zone. His blade ignited mid-stride, white-hot plasma screaming to life as he closed the 30-foot gap in 4 heartbeats. The rebel's shot went wide. Surprise did that and made even trained soldiers hesitate. Marcus's blade carved through the weapon's barrel, and his armored boot caught the commander in the chest plate hard enough to send him sprawling. 12 weapons swung toward Marcus. He stood over the fallen rebel, blade raised, and smiled. Not because he was winning, because behind him he'd heard the soft whisper of the Empress's robes as she finally moved. Enough. Her voice could shatter mountains when she wanted it to. Every weapon lowered. Not from fear. The rebels were fanatics. They didn't lower weapons from fear. They lowered them because the Empress had stood, and when she stood, you paid attention. She descended the 7 steps from her throne, each footfall precise and measured. Marcus didn't turn. His job was the gap between her and danger, and he'd hold that gap until his heart stopped beating. "Commander Sektar," she said, her tone shifting to something Marcus had rarely heard. "You enter my hall with weapons drawn. You threaten my guard."
"You claim I am a tyrant?"
She paused 3 feet from Marcus's back. "Tell me why you live." The commander struggled to his feet. His chest plate cracked from Marcus's kick. "Because you need to hear truth, Radiance. Your expansion into the outer reaches is killing millions. Your war fleets burn colonies that refuse to kneel. Your empire is built on conquest," she finished. "Yes. All empires are." Her lower eyes shifted to Marcus. "My guard comes from a conquered world. Earth fell to my fleets. 8 years ago, his homeworld burned. His cities crumbled. His people knelt." She moved beside Marcus now, fully exposed to the rebels. He tensed but didn't move. This was her play. Yet he stands here, blade drawn, ready to die for me. Why? The question hung in the chamber like smoke. Commander Sektar's ridge crests flattened. Confusion. Marcus had wondered the same thing for 3 years. Why did he stand here? Why did he take the oath? The memories flickered. Earth's surrender. The occupation. The recruitment offer. He'd accepted because the alternative was starvation in the ruins of New Chicago. That's what he'd told himself. But 3 years of watching her rule, 3 years of standing in this hall while she made impossible decisions, had changed something. "Because she listens," Marcus said quietly. Every eye turned to him. Royal guards didn't speak during audiences. Protocol forbade it. He'd just broken a rule as old as the Empire. When Earth's water processing plants failed last year, killing thousands, I broke protocol. I interrupted a war council to tell her. She stopped the meeting. Diverted 3 dreadnoughts to transport purification equipment. Fired the governor who'd embezzled the maintenance funds. He looked at Sektar. She could have ignored me. Could have had me executed for the interruption. Instead, she saved my people. The Empress's scales shifted to deep blue. Surprise. She hadn't known he remembered that day so clearly. Captain Chen forgets to mention he submitted his execution request in writing after speaking out of turn. He believed he deserved death for breaking protocol. Her voice carried a note of what might have been amusement in a human. I declined to oblige him. Sektar's weapon trembled. One act of mercy doesn't absolve genocide's Radiance. No, she agreed, it does not. But tell me, Commander, who sent you here today? Who armed 300 rebels and gave them access codes to my palace? The silence stretched. Marcus saw it then. The way Sektar's eyes shifted left for a microsecond. Tell. Every species had him. High Chancellor Vortain, the Empress continued. Who controls the Outer Reach fleets? Who profits from every world that burns, because burnt worlds need rebuilding, and his companies hold the reconstruction contracts. She moved closer to the rebel commander. You thought you were fighting tyranny. You're fighting for a profiteer's stock portfolio. Marcus watched the rebellion die in real time. Saw it in the way weapons lowered, in the way ridge crests flattened in shame. Vortain had played them perfectly. Start a rebellion, use it to justify harsher crackdowns, profit from the chaos. The Empress had probably known for months. Captain Chen, she said, her tone formal again. Clear the hall. Commander Sektar and I require privacy. Every instinct screamed at Marcus to refuse. Leaving her alone with armed rebels was suicide. But he'd learned something else in 3 years. She didn't give orders she expected to be questioned. He sheathed his blade and walked toward the massive doors, armor ringing with each step. Behind him, he heard her speak again. Commander, your rebellion ends today, but your war doesn't have to. The door sealed with a heavy thud, cutting off whatever came next. Marcus stood in the antechamber, surrounded by a dozen royal guards who'd watched the entire confrontation through security feeds, their faces unreadable behind their helmets. She's alone in there with 300 hostiles, one guard said. Marcus nodded. Yes. You left her. She ordered me to. That's not protocol. Marcus smiled grimly. No, but she doesn't need protocol. She needs trust. He settled against the wall to wait, every muscle coiled and ready. If he heard weapons fire, protocol could burn. He'd go through those doors and whatever stood behind them. But he didn't think he would. The Empress hadn't survived 4 centuries on the throne by making mistakes. Inside the throne room, history was changing. Marcus couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but he felt it in his bones, that electric charge that came before a storm, the kind that either cleared the air or burned everything to ash. He checked his blade's charge and waited to see which it would be. 4 hours passed before the throne room doors opened. Marcus snapped to attention as Commander Sektar emerged, his weapon holstered, his ridge crests flat in submission. Behind him, the 300 rebels filed out one by one, each stopping to bow before the Empress who stood framed in the doorway. No shots had been fired. No blood had been spilled. Whatever she'd said in those 4 hours had accomplished what 10 fleets couldn't. She'd ended a rebellion with words. The last rebel passed. The princess's eyes found Marcus. Walk with me, Captain. He fell into step beside her as she moved through the palace corridors, their footfalls echoing off vaulted ceilings decorated with the conquest banners of 1,000 worlds. She said nothing for 10 minutes, her silence heavy with thought. Finally she spoke. You broke protocol today. Yes, Your Radiance. You spoke during an official audience without permission. Yes, Your Radiance. You revealed personal details of palace operations to hostile forces. Marcus hesitated. Yes, Your Radiance. She stopped walking. They stood in the Gallery of Remembrance, surrounded by holographic monuments to fallen warriors from every species in the Empire. Earth's monument was small, tucked in a corner, a single human soldier, forever frozen, reaching for the sky. Do you know why I chose a human for my personal guard? She asked. Marcus had wondered, had asked himself 1,000 times why she'd selected him from the recruitment pool 8 years ago. No, Your Radiance. Because humans are unique in the galaxy. Every other species I've conquered understood power. They recognized strength, feared overwhelming force, and submitted when the mathematics of war became untenable. It was logical, predictable. She gestured toward Earth's monument. Humans don't operate on logic when it matters most. You operate on faith. Faith in what? In possibility. In the idea that impossible odds can be overcome if someone is just stubborn enough to try. Do you know how many races have sent assassins against me in 4 centuries, Captain? No, Your Radiance. 6,412 attempts. Poisons, weapons, biological agents, dimensional rifts, temporal paradoxes. I've survived them all. Do you know what I've never survived? She turned to face him fully. Doubt. When the people stop believing the Empire serves them, when they start seeing only the conquest and not the stability, the protection, the unity, that's when empires crumble from within. Marcus understood then. You needed someone who still believed. I needed someone who could show me what belief looked like when stripped of everything else. Your world burned. Your family died in the bombings of New Chicago. By every logical measure, you should hate me. Her scales shifted to a color he'd never seen, soft gold like sunrise. Yet you stand between me and death, day after day, asking nothing in return but the chance to serve. That's not duty, Captain. That's faith. Faith that you're trying to build something better, Marcus said, even if the methods are brutal. Are they working? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. I see the stability in the core worlds. I see the trade routes that feed billions. But I also see the outer reaches burning, and I wonder if the cost is too high. She began walking again, her pace measured. Commander Sekthar asked me the same question today. I gave him an answer I've given no one else in 4 centuries. Would you like to hear it? If you wish to share it, your radiance. I'm tired, Captain Chen. Tired of war. Tired of conquest. Tired of watching worlds burn because their leaders chose pride over their people's survival. When I took this throne 400 years ago, the galaxy was chaos. 1,000 warlords, each claiming territory, each enslaving or exterminating those who resisted. I brought order through fire because fire was all they understood. They entered the Empress's private quarters, a violation of protocol for any guard, but she'd waved off the objection before he could voice it. The room was sparse, almost monastic. A sleeping platform, a meditation circle, and a single window overlooking the capital city's glittering spires. I told Sekthar that I would make him an offer no rebel commander has ever received. I would give him a fleet, resources, and authority to rebuild the outer reaches according to his vision, under imperial protection but with local autonomy. In exchange, he would serve as governor and prove that there's a better way than endless expansion. She moved to the window. He accepted. By tomorrow, his rebels will be administrators. Their weapons will be construction equipment, and the galaxy will see that the Empire can evolve. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe, or vindication. That's why you had me leave. You needed them to see you without your guard, without the symbols of power. I needed them to see me as I am, a being who makes mistakes, who carries the weight of 4 centuries of bloodshed, who wants to find a path forward that doesn't require burning the galaxy to ash. She turned from the window, and I needed you outside those doors to prove something to myself. What, your radiance? That I could sit in a room with 300 enemies and trust that if I called, you would come, not because protocol demanded it, not because your oaths compelled it, but because you chose to. Her 4 eyes held his gaze. Tell me, Captain, if I ordered you to walk through fire, would you do it? Marcus didn't hesitate. Yes. Why? Because you've never given an order without reason. If you told me to walk through fire, it would be because something on the other side was worth saving. The Empress's scales shifted through a dozen colors, emotions Marcus had learned to read but could never fully understand. 3 weeks from now, I'm traveling to the frontier worlds. Personally. Not sending representatives or governors, but going myself to meet with the leaders I've spent decades trying to crush into submission. It's dangerous. My advisors say it's suicide. High Chancellor Vortain especially objects, which tells me it's the right choice. She paused. I'm taking only 1 guard. Will you walk through fire with me, Marcus Chen? He'd never heard her use his personal name before. In 3 years, it had always been Captain Chen, or simply Captain Chen. Hearing his name in her crystalline voice felt like a coronation and a funeral at once. An honor and a death sentence. To the frontier worlds and back, your radiance. Through fire, plasma, and the void itself, if necessary. Good. Because what I'm about to do will either transform the Empire or destroy it. There's no middle ground. She moved to her meditation circle and sat, her body settling into a posture of deep contemplation. You're dismissed, Captain. Get rest. In 3 weeks, everything changes. Marcus bowed and turned to leave, but her voice stopped him at the door. Captain? Thank you. For believing when no one else would. He looked back at the Empress of 1,000 worlds, sitting alone in her sparse quarters, and saw not a tyrant or a conqueror, but a person carrying an impossible burden. Thank you for being worth believing in, your radiance. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. The corridor outside was empty, the palace settling into night cycle quiet. Marcus made his way to the guard barracks, his mind racing. 3 weeks. 3 weeks until they walked into the most dangerous region of the Empire with no army, no fleet, just a human guard and an empress betting everything on the power of presence over force. In his quarters, Marcus pulled up the tactical files on the frontier worlds. 37 systems in open rebellion. 70 billion souls who'd never seen the Empress as anything but a face on a screen, issuing orders that ended with their worlds burning.
They'd be expecting a war fleet. Instead, they'd get a single ship and a promise that things could change.
It was insane. It was brilliant. It was exactly the kind of impossible gambit that humans understood in their bones. Marcus smiled grimly and began his preparations. 3 weeks to make sure that when the Empress walked into fire, she'd walk out the other side. He'd need every second. The frontier world of Kestar hung in space like a broken crown, its 3 moons scorched from orbital bombardment 5 years prior. The Empress's personal ship, a sleek vessel called the Dawning Hope, dropped out of FTL into a sphere of hostile silence. 37 defense platforms locked weapons, 200 rebel fighters scrambled from hidden asteroid bases. The electromagnetic spectrum screamed with jamming signals and targeting locks. Marcus stood at the Empress's side on the bridge, his armor sealed, his blade ready. "They're hailing us," the ship's AI announced, demanding we power down shields and weapons or be fired upon. The Empress's scales were pure white. Determination. Open a channel, visual and audio. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a Kestar War Council, 12 species, all battle-scarred, all radiating the kind of hate that came from watching your world burn. Their leader, a massive Theran with cybernetic limbs replacing those lost in battle, growled through the translator. "Empress, you dare come here with 1 ship. Do you wish to surrender or simply die faster?" "Neither," she replied, her voice calm. "I wish to talk, face to face, on your soil." The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus watched the War Council members exchange glances, their expressions ranging from confusion to fury. The Theran leader's cybernetic hand clenched hard enough to crack the armrest of his chair. "You want to land on Kestar?" "Unarmed. Not unarmed." "I'll bring my guard. But yes, land, meet with you in person, and discuss terms. Terms of surrender, terms of coexistence." The Theran laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The Empress of Blood and Fire wants to discuss coexistence. This is a trick. No trick. Land on your world, meet in a location of your choosing, hear what I have to say. If you don't like my offer, you're free to kill me where I stand. You have my word. No retaliation, no revenge strikes. Just one conversation." Marcus's jaw clenched. She'd just given the entire frontier the blueprint for ending the Empire. Kill the Empress, fracture the power structure, and watch 4 centuries of unity collapse. But she'd done it with complete sincerity, and somehow, impossibly, the Theran leader seemed to sense it. "You're serious?" "Completely. I'm sending landing coordinates for my ship. Send me a location for our meeting. Captain Chen and I will come alone." The channel closed. Marcus waited exactly 3 seconds before speaking. "Your Radiance, this is beyond dangerous." "It's necessary," she finished. Yes, Captain. It is. The frontier worlds will never believe words transmitted through screens. They need to see me, flesh and blood, standing on their soil and willing to die for a chance at peace. They'll kill you. Perhaps. But you'll be there to make sure they have to work for it." She smiled, a very human expression she'd picked up from years of watching him. And humans are very good at making people work for things, aren't they? The landing coordinates came through 20 minutes later, an abandoned industrial complex on Kestar's surface, heavily damaged from the orbital strikes, surrounded by open ground that made ambush difficult. No cover. No escape routes. Perfect kill zone. "It's a trap," he said flatly. "Of course it's a trap," the Empress replied. "It'd be fools not to trap me. But sometimes you walk into traps because what's on the other side is worth the risk." The Dawning Hope descended through Kestar's atmosphere, its shields flickering under the attention of hundreds of weapon locks. The landing was smooth, the boarding ramp extended with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and Marcus stepped out first into the acrid air of a dying world. The industrial complex loomed ahead, its walls pocked with plasma scoring in collapsed sections. The sky was the color of old bruises, the moons hanging overhead like accusing eyes. Marcus's helmet display painted the area with threat assessments. 67 confirmed hostiles, probable count over 200. Sniper nests in the ruined buildings, heavy weapons emplacements. enough firepower to vaporize a city block. The Empress descended the ramp behind him, her ceremonial robes flowing in the toxic wind. Big Bay. She wore no armor, carried no weapons, just herself and the weight of 4 centuries. They walked across the scarred earth toward the complex's main entrance. Every step felt like crossing a minefield. At the entrance, the Theron leader waited, flanked by his war council. Up close, his cybernetic limbs were even more extensive than Marcus had realized. Both legs, one arm, half his torso, all replaced with military-grade hardware, battle damage from the siege of Kestar. The Empress had given those orders personally. "Empress," the Theron said, his voice a mechanical rasp. "I am War Leader Krelvor. You stand on ground you ordered burned. You breathe air you poisoned. You look at survivors of genocide you commanded. Give me one reason not to kill you where you stand." The Empress met his gaze without flinching. "Because killing me won't bring back the dead. It won't restore your world. It won't undo the damage. But listening to me might give you a path to something better than endless revenge." Krelvor's cybernetic hand moved toward the plasma cannon integrated into his arm. Marcus's blade was in his hand before the motion completed, its edge humming 3 inches from the war leader's neck. They froze there, a tableau of potential violence balanced on a knife's edge. "Stand down, Captain," the Empress said quietly. Marcus didn't move. "Captain Chen," she repeated, her tone harder. "That's an order." His blade lowered slowly, reluctantly. Krelvor's cannon stayed half raised, his mechanical eyes studying Marcus with what might have been respect. "Your human guard has courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless." "He has faith," the Empress corrected. "Faith that there's a better way forward than this." She gestured to the ruined landscape. "War Leader, I'm not here to apologize." "Apologies mean nothing when weighed against millions of dead. I'm here to offer you something no conqueror has ever offered the conquered. A choice. Autonomy. Real autonomy. Keep your weapons, your fleets, your governments. Remain part of the Empire for trade and mutual defense, but govern yourselves. No more governors. No more forced integration. No more burning worlds that don't comply fast enough." Krelvor's cannon lowered completely. "In exchange for what?" "There's always an exchange. In exchange for stopping the cycle. No more raids on core worlds. No more attacks on trade routes. No more funding insurgencies in neighboring systems. We both put down our torches and see if we can build something that doesn't require constant fire to maintain." The War Council erupted in argument. Half called it a trap, the other half called it weakness to be exploited. Krelvor raised his cybernetic hand for silence. "You expect me to believe the Empress of Blood and Fire has suddenly grown a conscience?" "Not a conscience, a sense of reality. I'm 400 years old, War Leader. I've conquered 1,000 worlds. I've built an empire that spans half the galaxy. And I'm tired. Tired of the killing. Tired of the burning. Tired of creating more people like you, survivors twisted by rage, living only for revenge." She moved closer to him, close enough that Marcus's every instinct screamed to intervene. "I look at you and see the cost of every order I've ever given. I can't undo what I've done. But I can stop doing it." Krelvor's remaining organic eye narrowed. "Pretty words. But words mean nothing without action. Then let me show you action." "Captain Chen?" Marcus stepped forward, his helmet retracting to reveal his face. "War Leader. Your Empress killed your people? Burned your world. Why do you serve her?" The question was a blade designed to cut deep. Marcus had asked himself the same thing 1,000 times. Because she could have let my people starve when Earth's infrastructure failed. She didn't. Because she could have executed me for breaking protocol to save them. She didn't. Because she's here, right now, risking everything for a chance at peace, when she could have just glassed this planet from orbit and been done with it. He met Krelvor's gaze steadily. "I serve her because I've seen her try to be better than she was. Not because she's perfect, not because she's forgiven for what she's done, but because she's trying, and that's more than most conquerors ever do." The Theron war leader stood silent for a long moment. Then he raised his cybernetic arm, not the one with the cannon, but the other one, his hand extended in the universal gesture of greeting. "Captain Chen speaks truth." That took more courage than most would show. He turned to the Empress. "I'll hear your full proposal. But know this, if you betray us, if this is a trick, I will spend the rest of my existence hunting you across the stars." "If I betray you," the Empress replied, taking his offered hand, "I'll deserve it. They moved into the complex's central chamber, a vast space that had once been a manufacturing floor and was now a makeshift council room. 300 frontier leaders filled the space, representing every major rebel faction. The air was thick with hostility and desperate hope in equal measure. The Empress stood in the center, unguarded except for Marcus at her back, and began to speak. She outlined a new structure: the federated territories, semi-autonomous regions within the empire that governed themselves while contributing to mutual defense and trade. She acknowledged every atrocity, named every burned world, and offered no excuses. She presented economic data showing how the current system was failing even the core worlds, how the cost of endless expansion was bankrupting the empire's ability to protect what it had already conquered. Hours passed. Arguments flared and died. Hard questions were asked and answered with brutal honesty. Marcus stood silent, watching the crowd, ready to move if anyone reached for a weapon. No one did. The Empress's words carried a weight that transcended politics, the weight of someone who'd finally realized that the path they'd walked for centuries led only to ash. As dawn broke over Kestar's scarred landscape, war leader Krelvor stood. "Empress, your proposal is unprecedented. It asks us to trust someone who's given us every reason not to. But it also offers us something we've never had: hope that our children might live in peace." He looked around the chamber. "I propose we accept a trial period. 3 years. The frontier worlds become the first federated territory. If it works, others follow. If you betray us, we go back to war." Everyone in favor? 300 hands rose. Not all of them, maybe 200. But it was enough. The Empress's scales shifted to brilliant blue. Joy, Marcus had learned. Pure, unguarded joy. "Then let's begin." She turned to Marcus. "Captain, witness this moment. Record it for history. Let it be known that on this day, in this place, the Empire changed." Marcus activated his armor's recording systems, capturing everything: the ruined chamber, the wary faces, the Empress standing among former enemies, all of them choosing hope over hate. It was madness. It was beautiful. It was the most human thing he'd ever seen an alien Empress do. They spent 2 more weeks on Kestar, hammering out details, establishing protocols, setting up communication networks. Marcus barely slept. His every waking moment spent ensuring the Empress's safety while she transformed the foundation of galactic governance. On the final day, as they prepared to return to the capital, Krelver approached Marcus privately. "Human, your Empress has courage, but courage without strength is just suicide. You keep her alive, yes? This new path requires her voice." "I'll keep her alive," Marcus promised, "or die trying." "Good. 'Cause the frontier needs her. The galaxy needs her. And if someone kills her before this change takes root, everything we've built here dies with her." He gripped Marcus's shoulder with his cybernetic hand. "Walk through fire for her, Captain Shen. We're all counting on it." Marcus watched the Theran war leader walk away, then turned to find the Empress watching him from the ship's ramp. "Ready to go home, Captain? Ready to see what comes next, Your Radiance?" They lifted off together, leaving Kestar's scarred surface behind. Below, Marcus could see construction crews already beginning repairs. Not Imperial crews, but local workers, rebuilding their world their own way. It was a small beginning, but beginnings were where every impossible journey started. The Empress settled into her meditation circle during the flight back, her scales cycling through colors Marcus had never seen, probably didn't have names for. After an hour, she spoke. "I'm going to die for this, you know. Vortain and the other chancellors won't accept losing their territories. Someone will kill me." "Not while I'm breathing," Marcus said flatly. "Even you can't stop a determined assassin forever, Captain. Eventually someone will succeed. Then I'll make sure it takes them so long that your new system is already established. Make sure you live long enough to see the federated territories work." She smiled. "Walking through fire indeed. Tell me, Marcus Chen, what does Earth say about humans who attempt impossible things? We call them heroes. Or idiots." "Usually both. Which one are you?" Marcus considered. Thought about the path that had led him from Earth's ruins to an alien throne room to standing on a rebel world watching an empire transform. "I'm just a guard doing his job, Your Radiance. The impossibility is just part of the job description." The Empress laughed then, a sound like crystal bells, and Marcus realized it was the first time he'd ever heard her truly laugh. "Then let's keep doing impossible things together, Captain. starting with surviving what comes next. They dropped out of FTL to find the capital system in chaos. 20 Imperial dreadnoughts blocked their approach, flagship broadcasting demands for the Empress to surrender and submit to judgment by the High Council, Vortain's forces. The coup had started, and between the Empress and her throne stood an entire fleet willing to burn the galaxy to keep their power. Marcus checked his blade's charge and smiled grimly. Time to see just how much fire one human could walk through. The Dawning Hope's shields flickered under targeting locks from 20 dreadnoughts. Marcus stood on the bridge beside the Empress, watching the tactical display paint their survival chances in shades of red and black. 0.03%. The ship's AI hadn't bothered calculating beyond the decimal. Empress Velkara, High Chancellor Vortain's voice boomed through the comm system. You stand accused of treason against the Empire, unauthorized negotiations with rebel forces, and endangering Imperial stability. Power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. The Empress's scales shifted to deep purple, rage, controlled and focused. Chancellor, under what authority do you give me orders?
I am the throne.
I am the Empire. Under the authority of the High Council, acting in emergency session to preserve Imperial unity. Your experimental governance has destabilized 3 sectors. The Council has voted to relieve you of command pending investigation. Marcus's tactical implants ran threat assessments. The dreadnoughts were positioning for a kill box. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, just overwhelming firepower waiting for the order to fire. But something was off. 20 dreadnoughts was massive force, but where were the support ships? Where were the fighter screens? This was power display, not battle formation. He's bluffing, Marcus said quietly. How can you tell? The positioning is wrong. Too much firepower concentrated in visual range, not enough deployed for actual combat. He wants you to surrender, not to fight. The Empress studied the tactical display, her 4 eyes narrowing. Because if he kills me, he can't control the narrative. But if I surrender, he can put me on trial, discredit the Federated Territories Initiative, and restore the old order with legal justification. So we run, Marcus suggested. The FTL drives are charged. We could... No. Her voice was crystal and iron. Running validates his accusations, makes it look like I have something to hide. She opened a channel. Chancellor Vortain, I decline your invitation to surrender. If the High Council wishes to discuss my governance, they can do so when I arrive at the palace through the front door, not in chains. The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Then Vortain's voice returned, edged with barely contained fury. Empress, you're surrounded by the finest ships in the fleet. You have 1 small courier vessel. Be reasonable. I'm being perfectly reasonable. You, however, are committing treason. The High Council has no authority to relieve the Empress of command. Our laws are clear. Only the full Senate can initiate such action, and only after formal charges are presented and debated. Marcus heard the shift in her tone. She wasn't defending herself, she was prosecuting Vortain. So here's my counteroffer, Chancellor. Stand down your ships, return to the palace, and I'll pretend this misunderstanding never happened. Or continue the charade and explain to the Senate why you attempted a military coup. This isn't a coup. This is preservation of order. Then let's take it to the Senate and see which story they believe. Marcus watched the tactical display as 2 dreadnoughts broke formation, their weapons powering down. Then 4 more. Then 6. Vortain's fleet was fracturing in real time as ship captains realized they'd been maneuvered into participating in treason. All ships! Maintain formation! Vortain's voice cracked with desperation. The Empress is not to reach the palace. These orders come from the High Council itself. Funny thing about orders from the High Council, the Empress replied calmly. They're supposed to be signed by all 12 members. Captain Chen, please transmit the authentication codes we received from the Council. Marcus sent the data, his fingers flying over the controls. The authentication package showed only 6 signatures, half the Council, all members loyal to Vortain or with financial interests in the outer reaches. A majority, but not the supermajority required for emergency actions. The fleet captain saw it immediately. More ships broke formation. Within 2 minutes, only 8 dreadnoughts remained locked on the Dawning Hope. Vortain, the Empress said, her voice gentle now, almost pitying. You've lost. Stand down before this becomes bloodshed. I've lost? The Chancellor's laugh was bitter. No, Empress. You've lost. Even if you reach the palace, even if you expose my actions, you've proven my point.
You're weak. You negotiate with rebels.
You give away territory. You make humans into guards and trust aliens who should be slaves. The Empire needs strength, not sentiment. The Empire needs evolution. But you're right about one thing. This ends at the palace. Captain, take us in. The dawning hope surged forward, its modest engines screaming as it dove toward the capital planet. The remaining 8 dreadnoughts opened fire. Plasma bolts lanced through space, each one capable of vaporizing the courier ship. Marcus had exactly one advantage. The Empress's personal pilot was a former combat racer who'd won 6 system championships before retiring. The ship twisted through impossible angles, its inertial dampeners screaming in protest as acceleration forces that should have liquefied the crew were barely held in check. Plasma fire scorched past, so close that hull plating ablated from the heat. They dropped into the planet's atmosphere with 3 dreadnoughts in pursuit, the capital city's defense grid coming online but hesitating. Firing on the Empress's ship would be treason, but so would ignoring the High Council's orders. The city's central tower loomed ahead, the Senate chambers at its peak. "We're not going to make it," the pilot announced. "Dreadnought 3 has firing solution in 20 seconds. Marcus made a decision that would either save them or kill them. Your Radiance, I need you to broadcast Empire-wide, right now. Every channel, every frequency." She didn't question, didn't hesitate. Open. Her image appeared on billions of screens across 1,000 worlds. The Empress, unarmored and unafraid, standing on a ship under fire. "Citizens of the Empire, this is your Empress. I am currently being fired upon by forces loyal to High Chancellor Vortain, who has attempted a coup based on forged council orders. I returned from Kestar, where I negotiated the first Federated Territory Agreement, offering rebel worlds autonomy within the Empire. Chancellor Vortain opposed this because peace threatens his business interests." She paused, letting it sink in. "I ask you now, do you want an empire built on endless war, or one that chooses peace when possible and strength when necessary? Watch what happens next. If I die, remember that I died trying to give you a better future." The broadcast cut. The dreadnoughts held fire. Every eye in the galaxy was watching now, and firing on the Empress while she spoke of peace would validate everything she'd said. They had perhaps 30 seconds before Vortain found a way to spin it, but 30 seconds was enough. The dawning hope landed hard on the Senate Tower's external platform, its landing gear buckling from the impact. Marcus was moving before the engines cooled, his armor sealed, his blade ignited. The Empress followed, her ceremonial robes streaming behind her as they ran for the Senate chamber entrance. The doors blew open ahead of them. Chancellor Vortain stood there with 50 Imperial guards, all weapons raised. Behind him, the Senate chamber buzzed with 400 senators from every corner of the Empire, all of them watching history unfold in real time. "Empress," Vortain said, his voice amplified throughout the chamber, "you are under arrest for treason, unauthorized military action, and endangering Imperial security." "Chancellor," she replied, equally amplified, "you are under arrest for attempting a coup, forging council orders, and orchestrating false flag operations in the outer reaches to justify continued conflict." She pulled a data crystal from her robes. "This contains evidence of your business dealings, including contracts signed before worlds were targeted for pacification, reconstruction agreements dated weeks before planets were bombed. You've been profiting from war, and when I threatened peace, you tried to kill me."
Vortain's face contorted. Lies.
"All lies. Guards, arrest her." The guards didn't move. Marcus saw it in their body language. They'd seen the broadcast, seen the evidence, and were realizing they'd been used. "I said arrest her!" Vortain screamed. One guard lowered his weapon, then another. Then all 50 stepped back, creating a corridor to the Senate floor. The Empress walked forward, and Marcus walked with her, his blade still ignited, ready for the inevitable. Vortain reached for a concealed weapon. Marcus moved faster. His blade carved through the Chancellor's hand, severing it at the wrist before the weapon could clear its holster. Vortain screamed and collapsed. Medical drones swarmed from the walls, stabilizing him. The Senate erupted in chaos. The Empress raised her hand for silence. Slowly, impossibly, the chamber quieted. "Senators," she said, "you've seen what I've tried to build. You've seen what Chancellor Vortain tried to preserve. Now you must choose. Vote to continue the old ways, endless expansion, endless war, endless burning of worlds that resist. Or vote to try something new. Give the Federated Territories a chance. Let the frontier worlds govern themselves. See if peace can work." A senator from the Krell system stood, one of the core worlds, wealthy and powerful. "And if peace fails?" If the rebels use autonomy to rebuild their forces, then we fought and bled for nothing, the Empress admitted. But if it succeeds, we prove that an empire can be more than conquest, that it can be cooperation. The vote took 3 hours. Marcus stood beside the Empress through all of it, watching senators debate, argue, and ultimately choose. When the final count came, the Federated Territories initiative passed by 12 votes. 12 votes out of 400, but it passed. The Empress's scales shifted to colors Marcus had never seen: relief, hope, and exhaustion in equal measure. She addressed the Senate one final time. "Thank you for trusting me. For trusting that there's a better path. I won't waste this chance." She turned to leave, and the Senate did something unprecedented. They stood. All 400 senators, representing 1,000 worlds and 100 species, rose and bowed to the Empress, who had just bet everything on peace. In the corridor outside, away from the cameras and the crowds, the Empress finally allowed herself to show weakness. She leaned against the wall, her body trembling with released tension. "We did it," she whispered.
We actually did it!
"You did it," Marcus corrected. "I just kept you alive long enough." "No, Captain. You showed me what was worth staying alive for." "You walked through fire, and in doing so showed me that the fire didn't have to be the only way forward." She straightened, composure returning. "I'm going to change the Empire, Marcus Chen. Really change it. And you're going to help me? To the end, your radiance." "Good, because this is just the beginning." They walked together back to the palace, through corridors lined with citizens who'd watched the broadcast, who'd seen their Empress risk everything for peace. Some cheered, some remained silent, some wept. All of them understood that something fundamental had shifted in the galaxy's balance. In his private quarters that night, Marcus received a message from Earth. His sister, whom he'd thought dead in the bombardment, had survived in the underground shelters. She was alive, rebuilding in New Chicago, and she'd seen the broadcast. Her message was simple. "Proud of you, little brother. You chose to serve something bigger than revenge. That's the most human thing I can imagine." Marcus read it 3 times, then deleted it per security protocols. But he kept the words in his heart. The next day, the Empress summoned him to her private quarters. "Captain, I'm promoting you to Commander of Personal Security. You'll oversee not just my protection, but security for all diplomatic missions to the Federated Territories. You'll train a new corps of guards, drawn from every species, taught to protect through presence and deterrence rather than overwhelming force. Your radiance? I'm just a soldier. You're a human who chose faith over hate, service over revenge, and peace over war. That makes you exactly what I need."
She handed him a datapad.
"These are the proposed guard candidates. Review them. Choose well. We're building something new, and it needs to be protected by people who understand why it's worth protecting." Marcus took the datapad and saw names from dozens of worlds, including 3 from Kestar, recommended by war leader Krelvor himself. Former enemies becoming protectors. The cycle breaking in real time. "I'll choose well," he promised. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the same throne room where he'd once stopped a rebellion with a blade and words. But now he stood with 50 guards at his back, representing 20 species, all of them trained in the new protocols he'd developed. The Empress sat on her throne, receiving the first official delegation from the Federated Territories. War leader Krelvor led them, his cybernetic limbs polished, his organic eye bright with cautious hope. "Empress," Krelvor said, "the frontier worlds send their regards. 3 months of autonomous governance, and we've seen improvements we didn't think possible. Crime down. Trade up. Reconstruction proceeding ahead of schedule. It's working." "Tell me the problems," the Empress replied. "There are always problems. True. Some core world companies are refusing to honor contracts with Federated Territory businesses, claiming we're no longer legitimate Imperial subjects. We need clarification on our legal status." The Empress nodded. "I'll issue an Imperial edict. Federated Territories are full members of the Empire with all economic rights and protections. Any company that refuses to honor contracts will lose their Imperial trade licenses." She paused. "What else?" "Pirates. Without Imperial fleet presence, some raiders think we're easy targets. We need authorization to maintain defensive fleets." "Authorized. Next?" They worked through a dozen issues, the Empress and the war leader solving problems together rather than through force. Marcus watched it unfold and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Pride in the Empire he served, in the Empress he protected, in the future they were building together. After the delegation left, the Empress called Marcus forward. "Commander, your assessment?" They're making it work, Your Radiance. Against all odds, against all expectations, they're proving it can be done. And the rest of the Empire, the senators who voted against this, the military commanders who see this as weakness, they're watching, waiting. If the Federated Territories fail, they'll say they were right. If they succeed, we change the galaxy. She stood, her scales shifting to determined blue. 50 more worlds have petitioned for Federated Territory status. I'm approving them all. In 5 years, half the Empire will govern itself. In 10, maybe more, we're transforming conquest into cooperation, one world at a time.
Marcus bowed.
And I'll walk through fire to make sure you live to see it happen. I know you will, Commander. That's why this works. Because someone believed it could. The Empress moved to the vast windows overlooking the capital, the city lights spreading like stars across the landscape. Do you know what I'm proudest of, Marcus? No, Your Radiance. That a human from a conquered world became the symbol of why this empire is worth saving. That you chose to serve not because you had to, but because you believed we could be better. That's the foundation of everything we're building. Not force, but faith. Not conquest, but choice. She turned to face him. And one day when I'm gone and someone else sits on this throne, they'll look back and see that the Empire changed because one human refused to give up on it. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I didn't change anything, Your Radiance. You did. I gave the orders. You showed me what was worth ordering. Dottie... She smiled. Now go train your guards. The next diplomatic mission leaves in 2 weeks, and I'm going personally to 3 more contested systems. We have a lot of fire left to walk through. Marcus saluted and left, his armor ringing with each step. Behind him, the Empress returned to her throne, her scales shifting through a rainbow of colors, all the emotions of someone who'd bet everything on peace and was watching it pay off, one small victory at a time. In the guard barracks, Marcus addressed his new corps. 50 faces, 50 species, all of them watching him with varying degrees of respect and doubt. Most of you were chosen because you're survivors, he began. Survivors of war, of conquest, of occupation. You know what it's like to lose everything. That's why you're here, because protecting peace means something to you. It's personal. He activated a holographic display showing the throne room, the Empress, the endless parade of diplomats and petitioners and former enemies, all choosing cooperation over conflict. Our job isn't to intimidate. It's to embody what the Empire is becoming. We stand as proof that former enemies can work together. That strength doesn't require cruelty. That protection doesn't mean domination. A guard from the Theron Collective, one of Krelvor's recommendations, raised a cybernetic hand. Commander, what do we do when words fail? When someone decides violence is the answer. Then we show them the cost of violence, Marcus replied. But we do it without becoming what we're protecting against. We use the minimum force necessary. We prioritize de-escalation, and we remember that every time we draw weapons, we're contradicting the message the Empress is trying to send. He deactivated the display. This is going to be hard. Harder than traditional guard duty. Because we're not just protecting one person, we're protecting an idea. The idea that empires can evolve. That conquest can become cooperation. That peace is possible even after centuries of war. The Theron Guard stood. Commander Chen, I fought against the Empire for 6 years, lost half my body defending my homeworld. The fact that I'm standing here protecting the Empress who ordered that attack should be impossible, but it's not, 'cause she changed. And if she can change, maybe anything can. The barracks erupted in a sound Marcus had never heard before, guards from a dozen species all voicing agreement in their own ways. Clicks, whistles, roars, and one very human hell yeah from a recruit from Earth's Asian sector. Marcus felt something settle in his chest. They understood. They believed. The fire he'd walked through hadn't been for nothing. 2 weeks later, the Empress's ship departed for the contested systems with Marcus and his full guard complement aboard. 3 worlds balanced on a knife's edge between joining the Federated Territories or declaring full independence and war. The outcome would shape the Empire's future. As they dropped out of FTL above the First World, Marcus stood at the Empress's side, his armor polished, his blade ready, his guards positioned perfectly. "Ready, Commander?" the Empress asked. "Always, Your Radiance. Let's show them what's possible." Together, they walked toward the transport shuttle, toward another chance to prove that peace could work. toward fire they would walk through together, and in the quantum encrypted message that flashed across the galaxy seconds later, war leader Krelivor sent 3 words to every Federated Territory world: watch and learn. The Empire was changing, one impossible conversation at a time. And Marcus Chen, the human who'd walked through fire for an alien empress, was proud to be part of it.